To enter Antarctic waters is to enter another world. This is the last great wilderness on Earth. A place of myth and mystery shaped by catastrophic winds and frozen seas, where icebergs roam like mystical beasts. Surrounded by the mighty Southern Ocean, and often obscured by fog and cloud, here lies the fifth largest continent, the White Continent, the Crystal Desert. This is the driest, windiest, and coldest continent on Earth. The temperature here can fall to -60 degrees Fahrenheit. Mountains rise to over 16,400 feet. And in some places, the ice is over 2.5 miles thick. Although covered in ice, the continent's history is one of fire and brimstone. Volcanic forces having shaped the Earth here since Antarctica first broke away from Gondwanaland some 180 million years ago. This contrast of ice and fire makes for a landscape seemingly inhospitable. But Antarctica, in fact, supports one of the greatest abundances of wildlife on Earth. Highly evolved, highly specialized creatures thrive here, the most iconic of which is the penguin. Of the 17 species of penguins found worldwide, only 4 species breed on the Antarctic continent proper, one of which is the gentoo. With their distinctive orange lipstick markings and clumsy demeanor, these are considered the gentlefolk of the 3 species of brush-tailed penguin. On the peninsula, gentoos breed during the Antarctic summer, following well-worn penguin highways to rookeries, some of which have been in use for thousands of years. Their colonies can be found quite some distance inland from the sea, with the gentoo renowned for its excellent choice in real estate. Every nest, a nest with a view. Although they live in a world of snow, gentoos need ice-free land on which to lay their eggs. Rocky slopes and ridges offer just such a place, and later provide the chicks ample opportunity to work on their suntan. Gen 2s typically lay 2 eggs in September or October, which hatch in just over a month. Even in a good year, both chicks are unlikely to survive, with a staggering 90% mortality of chicks under the age of 3. Why this is so remains a mystery, but it's certainly not due to a lack of parental dedication. For the Gen 2, pebbles are like gold. The more pebbles in the nest, the better the drainage and the drier the eggs. While one incubates, the other renovates, any free time spent collecting more nesting material. Pebble pinching is a regular occurrence, with any abandoned nest fair picking. Gen 2 parents return to sea to fish as often as every 6 to 8 hours, which is much more frequently than the other brush-tailed species. Diving deeply, rather than roaming as widely as the adelies and chinstraps, they stay close to shore. This enables them to return to their nests at the end of the day, preferring to spend the night with the family. In their tailored black and white plumage, reminiscent of little businessmen, they waddle back and forth from the sea in earnest ceremony. Theirs is a very busy life indeed. Polar penguins can remain in the water almost indefinitely without losing body heat. Their stout bodies designed more like mammals, and their flightless feathers adapted solely for insulation. Penguins spend most of their lives in the water, and although they lost their ability to fly millions of years ago, they still spread their wings beneath the waves. Using their feet as rudders, and their fast-beating wings for propulsion, the Gentoo can achieve speeds of up to 13 miles per hour in short bursts, porpoising like miniature dolphins. Like all busy beings, penguins seek time out for some well-deserved rest and relaxation, some chancing upon Antarctica's version of a health spa. In many Antarctic locations, volcanic hot springs still bubble just below the surface, resulting in eerie scenes of sulfuric steam, and cliffs of abstract mineral design. These strange moonscapes are the perfect haul-out sites for Weddell seals, one of 5 species of true seals to be found in the deep south. True seals are true polar animals. They rely entirely on their blubber layer for insulation, unlike other seals which have thick fur coats. Weddells, like other true seals, have few external organs, so their bodies are wonderfully streamlined for maximum efficiency in the water. Weddells must spend many hours ashore at a time, reoxygenating their bodies after feeding dives to depths of up to 1,300 feet, lasting as long as 80 minutes. These 1,000-pound gentle giants are renowned for their underwater singing and their beautiful mottled pelts. Closely related to the Weddell is the crab-eater seal, the most abundant of all Antarctic seals, with an estimated population of between 10 and 40 million. These are true Antarctic seals, spending all their lives in the fringes of the pack ice or roaming amongst the icebergs, avoiding land altogether, no matter what itch they have to scratch. Like all true seals, the crab-eaters cannot use their forelimbs for walking, so movement across ice rather than land is much easier and more fun. But they are most at home in the sea. Yet even here they need to be alert, with most bearing the scars of attack by killer whale and leopard seal. With females growing up to 10 feet long and weighing almost 900 pounds, this is Antarctica's top predator. Equipped with powerful jaws, sinuous neck, and a large reptilian head, the leopards are most notorious for their appetite for other warm-blooded animals. Although their diet consists mostly of krill, they regularly dine on other seals, such as crab-eater pups. And stalk the ice edge for unwary penguins. Just as dramatic as the animals themselves are the hunting grounds of the leopard seal. "99% of the Antarctic continent is covered by glacial ice, with its landscapes sculpted by massive glaciers millions of tons in weight and often many miles long and wide. If all this ice were to melt, the sea level could rise as much as 260 feet. Although these ornate tongues of ice may appear static, they are anything but, with some glaciers advancing or retreating as fast as 6,500 feet per year. On the shoreline, towering walls of ice gather strength, massive upheavals from within pushing them to breaking point. The sound of ice under pressure, called white thunder, issues a warning to all. Set free, the ice scatters across the surface of the sea like broken jigsaw puzzle pieces. Some only the size of a thumbnail, others the size of a small country. In total, they create a magical crystalline bed that is one of the defining images of Antarctica. Some will drift around the Southern Ocean for months, even years. Others will wash up on the peninsula shores, tumbling like jewels and creating surreal galleries of frozen art. Few could be more appreciative of these unique ice sculptures than the Adelie penguin. Although penguins extract all the water they need from their prey to survive, a mouthful of ice is a quick thirst quencher. The bergs also seem to inspire a certain artistic flair, with these miniature ice sculptors defending their creations with true creative ego. Named after Adélie de Ville, the wife of French explorer Dumont d'Urville, the Adelie is the quintessential Antarctic penguin, rarely found north of 60 degrees south, and living exclusively on the continent or outlying islands. Like other brush-tailed species, the Adelies need nesting sites free of ice, which can mean long hikes up and down very steep terrain. But where there's a will, there's a way. And the steeper the climb, the more inventive the bird. When short legs tire, there's always tobogganing. Their perseverance would make even Shackleton proud. The more the merrier is another catch cry of the Adelie. Their colonies are often very large, with 30,000 birds common, and sometimes even 1 million or more crowded into one rookery. The older, more experienced birds occupy the rookery's interior, returning to rebuild the same nests year after year. The Adelie typically incubates 2 eggs, laid 2 days apart. Although the older, more dominant one invariably gets more food, both chicks normally survive. By 3 to 4 weeks of age, the chicks are large enough to be left on their own. Warmed by thick brown jackets of down, they bide their time listening to the constant courtship serenading of the adults. At first, parents alternate time on the nest, but after 3 weeks, both must go to sea to gather enough krill to sustain their ever-hungry brood. When their parents are away, the chicks form tight creches to deter predators. This is Antarctica's equivalent of a child care center, complete with guardian adults making sure that wayward youngsters stay put. It's then just a matter of patience for the chicks. some counting snowflakes to while away the time. Others dreaming. Yet others keeping boredom at bay with little games of tag. A freshly returned adult, full of food, is a welcome sight. Imposter chicks abound, and the only way for the parent to ensure that it's feeding the right chick is to keep moving. Typically, the imposter chick will tire of the chase first, and leave the deserving chick to feed in peace. Well, that's the theory, but if the parent's still in doubt, it just keeps running. Although there is definite order amongst the apparent chaos of a penguin colony, life generally for the Adelie is pretty harsh. Often disorienting. And must involve many leaps of faith. Relative to size, penguins are heavier than other birds and often clumsy on land. Their bones are dense, without air sacs, and their blubber-heavy bodies are cumbersome. While other birds can soar above treacherous terrain, the penguins must navigate step by step, holding out their wings for balance and gripping the surface with long, sharp toenails. After that, it's just a matter of luck, or lack of it. At the onset of winter, the darkening skies and falling temperatures herald the departure of the Adelies. Leaving the colonies first are the younger birds, spilling onto the beaches and gathering on the shoreline in huge numbers. Afraid of marauding leopard seals, they enter en masse, skipping across the surface like stones. Their autumn months and early winter days are spent up to 400 miles north of the continent. And when they're not following the krill, they're happily adrift on the mighty icebergs. The iceberg is the archetypal image of Antarctica, Their strange shapes have inspired imaginations and altered destinies ever since exploration to Antarctica began, leaving a sense of awe in all that behold them. Born from simple snowflakes, compressed over the eons, and given birth to by ice shelves, the tabular bergs are the most distinctive of all, recognizable by their tabletop shapes and sheer walls. Other bergs form when glacial tongues calve, resulting in much more fanciful shapes. All are time capsules, the shifting seasons and weather conditions of the past frozen in time within their forms. Some are thousands of years in the making. Others drift for many seasons before melting. A few are so big they contain enough fresh water to supply a large city for years. No two are alike. Nor will ever be repeated. Icebergs vary as much in color as they do in shape. Perhaps the most impressive are the blue ones. When ice has been placed under tremendous pressure, it contains less air with which to reflect the normal color range. The denser the ice, the more prominent the blue spectrum. The finishing touch on most icebergs are crystal chandeliers, while distinct lines, like rings in a tree, remind yet again of the many winters and summers of the berg's creation. Indeed, the skin of any iceberg tells more than just one tale. Although 4/5 of a berg remains under the surface, they often roll. When they do, their new topsides can be beautifully scalloped, the result of air bubbles bursting while underwater. When it comes to icebergs and all their variety, Mother Nature certainly demonstrates an inexhaustible creative vision. The stage is set for the dance of the seabirds, with one of the most dramatic performers being the giant petrel. These are the most important scavengers in Antarctica, squabbling over carrion with wings outstretched to establish hierarchy. Every feast is a re-establishment of the pecking order. literally. Although smaller than the giant petrel, Antarctica's most ferocious winged predator is the skua. These elegant birds, nicknamed by one explorer as the Buccaneers of the South, not only scavenge but also actively hunt penguin eggs and even live chicks. Even their romancing has a certain aggressive edge. Up close, it's easy to tell that the skua is a predatory bird, with razor-sharp eyes and hooked bill testifying to its nature. A more innocent duet can be found with the blue-eyed shags. Their courtship an intricate affair, with much bobbing of heads. Not to be outdone, the black-browed albatross are also gifted courtship dancers. These are the most common of the albatross and breed every year, so there's plenty of opportunity to practice their steps. But the masters of ritualized dance are these: the wandering albatross. These majestic birds mate for life, and each season consolidate their bond with a complex display of body gesture and primal calls, often involving a number of courtesans as either participants or audience members. These are the largest flying birds on Earth, and do not hesitate to use their impressive 12-foot wingspan for dramatic effect during their ballet. But where these birds are true poetry in motion is in the air. The wanderers are the most oceanic of all seabirds, rarely landing on Earth apart from their brief breeding season. They can soar without flapping their wings for days at a time, and spend weeks, even months at sea, circumnavigating the Southern Ocean, traveling up to 9,300 miles on some of their fishing forays. Even during the breeding season, when they must return regularly to their nests, They have been known to travel as far as 5,000 miles in a week in search of food. For hungry chicks, such as these of the black-browed albatross, that means a lot of patient waiting. It takes about 8 months before the average albatross chick is fledged. Plenty of time to not only memorize their nesting sites, to which they'll return for the rest of their lives, but also exercise those beautiful wings. Covering vast distances of their own, relative to body size, is another brush-tailed penguin species, whose colonies are sometimes a mile or more from the sea. It is the chinstrap, the most boisterous and feisty of all the Antarctic penguins, with a voice box to match their attitude. These calls reunite long-term partners who mate in early summer, with the chinstrap population consisting of over 7 million pairs. Like their cousins, the gentoo and adelie, they attempt to raise 2 chicks every season, with their chicks displaying the chinstrap's zest for life from a very early age. Both in attitude and appearance, these penguins are like miniature soldiers. Their helmet-like marking, or chinstrap, giving them their name. They are territorial and quick to pick a fight, with full-scale brawls a regular occurrence within their noisy neighborhoods. Reproachful beaks and stony terrain make the comings and goings of the chinstrap pretty challenging. But away from the competitive arena of the colony, they fall into line and become very focused, slowly joining forces in a march to the sea. Down on the plateau of Bailey Head on Deception Island, this march concentrates into a true penguin highway, where the only sound is the constant rhythm of soles on volcanic sand. Once on the shoreline, their nest-soiled bodies faced the onslaught of the surf. Panicked by potential predators and struggling to regroup with each new wave, the chinstraps take to the sea with various degrees of abandon and skill. As one bird enters, another exits. A penguin-styled changing of the guard. For the newly arrived, it's a matter of unruffling feathers and joining the long march back up to the heavens. At the height of summer, the South Pole is bathed in perpetual daylight. And there is little to compare to the beauty of Antarctica on a cloudless day. As explorer Roald Amundsen wrote in 1911, glittering white, shining blue, raven black. In the light of the sun, the land looks like a fairy tale. Pinnacle after pinnacle, peak after peak, crevassed, wild as any land on our globe, it lies unseen and untrodden. But Antarctica never stays in one mood for long. One moment she may be serene. The next moment, unleashing her notorious katabatic winds. Fog and cloud can erase a scene within minutes, and violent blizzards build with incredible speed. Down on the coast, winds up to 190 miles per hour have been recorded. Antarctica is, after all, the windiest place on Earth. Wind shapes everything here, the ice, rocks, snow, even the lives of the animals themselves. In fact, Antarctica's weather patterns are the driving force behind the entire Earth's weather patterns. Antarctica is a study in impermanence. Even the mountains themselves are on the move. Completely undaunted by and as tough as the elements that shape their environment are the fur seals, one of Antarctica's real survivors. One of the great wonders of the fur seal is indeed its fur. While a human head boasts around 100,000 hairs per square inch of skin, the fur seal has 300,000. It's an astonishing attribute, certainly worth closer inspection. On rare albino or leucistic animals, such as this male, the thickness of the pelt becomes even more obvious. A majestic mane to rival any lion. Fur seals lack the blubber layer of true seals, so their pelt is their key to survival. Ironically, it was also the cause of their annihilation. Early explorers such as Dampier and Cook reported beaches covered in seals, which soon attracted hunters keen to make their fortune in the clothing trade. In the late 1700s, sealers arrived in droves, and within only a few decades, the fur seals were slaughtered to the brink of extinction. That's almost impossible to believe now. South Georgia alone hosting a population of at least 4 million animals. Despite their dark history, they have somehow retained a great sense of playfulness and a grudging acceptance of man. In the eyes of the fur seal, everything's fair game. No stone is left unturned. And no iceberg either. Sparring matches are a favorite pastime of the teenage seals. Social bonds are formed, and motor skills are fine-tuned, preparing them for the underwater acrobatics they will need to hunt krill, cephalopods, and fish. And, for the males, the serious physical demands of adulthood. December marks the start of the fur seal breeding season, and for the next few months, the beaches are a hive of activity. Bulls arrive first and establish territories, and then spend the entire breeding season chasing other bulls out of these territories, in battles that become increasingly bloody as the weeks pass. When the females arrive, they are herded by sheer brute force into a bull's territory or harem, the testosterone-pumped males sometimes injuring and even killing the females in the process. Weighing over 440 pounds, the males are up to 4 times the size of a female, and somewhat hard to resist. It may not be love that conquers all, but the conquests abound. And from late November to early January, a whole new generation is born. Immediately after birth, the mother and pup bond through nuzzling and vocalizing, and for the first few days are inseparable. After that, the female must alternate between being with her pup and going to sea in search of food, during which time the innocent youngster must face the big, bad world all on its own. When the females depart, the pups initially stay close to the spot where they were last suckled. But as the weeks pass and their courage builds, their sense of mischief leads them further afield, into the company of others their age. Like all toddlers, pups are extremely curious and have a ton of energy to burn. By January, they're in the shallows and splashing around, and by March, they will be masterful swimmers. But for now, it's just a blur of teeny-weeny gnashing teeth and uncoordinated fins. During the 4 months it takes for the pups to be weaned, the beaches are transformed into chaotic nursery grounds. The air filled with a cacophony of mewing voices. The hills blinking with thousands of curious eyes. By March, their warring fathers have laid down their arms, and their mothers have abandoned the beaches. It's time for the pups to live off their fat reserves, test out their swimming strokes, and take to the seas themselves. For attention to detail, Mother Nature is unsurpassed in her design of the king penguin. This is the second largest penguin species after the emperor penguin, with adults standing almost 40 inches tall and weighing up to 30 pounds, distinguishable by their long, elegant flippers and electric yellow markings. It's not hard to see why they were named the kings, as they are the true monarchs of the penguin species. Dignified and regal, they parade with shoulders back and beaks held high. The sight of their vast kingdoms, enough to take your breath away. The spectacle of a king penguin colony rivals any wildlife experience on Earth. Here, in St. Andrews Bay, can be found the biggest colony on South Georgia Island. Over 750,000 pairs occupy one valley, their bodies creating a thick tapestry of black, white, and yellow that stretches from sea to sky. The kings begin to breed at 4 years of age. A mature male displays his readiness to mate by calling out and stretching to his greatest height. If a female is attracted, he will lead her on a solemn march, with saucy strut and head swaying grandly. Although performed in public, this ritual walk is considered very private. If a third penguin interferes, a fight may break out. If you can indeed call this kind of gentleman's tiff a fight. Chicks too have a sense of personal space, but not when it comes to begging for food. They are dependent on their parents for much longer than other penguin species, taking a full year to fledge and not acquiring their adult plumage until their second birthday. So, until then, they follow their parents around like a relentless brown shadow. Incredibly, parents and chicks can locate one another in the crowd through voice recognition. And although they do not build nests, most adults return to exactly the same spot in the colony every time they breed. At St. Andrews Bay, the colony is built around the meltwater streams pouring down from the mountains above. These currents provide a shortcut for birds returning to sea, although it's often a bumpy ride. Once on the beach, they are faced by a huge washing machine of surf, which suits the kings perfectly. Washing is, after all, high on the birds' agenda. Proud of their plumage, they take cleanliness seriously. Those fresh from the colony spending quality time to free their feathers of guano and grime before beginning their hunting forays. The result? White chests as polished as stones, which these regal birds are happy to model. In contrast, others revel in the mud and dirt, making the earth itself come to life. These are the elephant seals, the largest of the seal species, who like nothing more than throwing their weight around. Like sumo wrestlers, the young males spend most of their time engaged in fleshy duels, honing fighting techniques they will later use in earnest as 4-ton adults. Elephant seals reach sexual maturity at 8 years of age, by which time the males possess the large trunk-like nose that gives them their name. Inflated with air and engorged with blood, such a nose becomes an impressive trumpet with which to intimidate other males. By this age, the males are obsessed with protecting territories and breeding rights, and the fights are no longer for fun. Although lacking grace and often offensive in nature, the elephant seal offers perhaps the best portrait gallery of all Antarctic animals. When viewed on shore, it's hard to believe that these massive blobs of blubber are in fact the world's deepest diving seals. In the pursuit of squid and fish, they regularly descend to depths of over 3,000 feet and can stay down for up to 2 hours at a time. In fact, they spend almost all of their lives at sea, only coming ashore to breed and to molt. The molt takes 3 weeks, during which time the seals bunch together, their combined body temperature helping to speed up the process. During this time, they will replace their entire outer layer of skin and cannot go to sea to feed until it's complete. So they are itchy. Hungry and irritable. And even less becoming than usual. Even when earthbound, These water-loving creatures find ways to stay submerged. Mud baths provide the perfect place to keep their blood pressure down and cover them with a rudimentary sunscreen lotion. But there always seems to be something close by to irritate the elephant seal in those long summer days. Even a sunset snooze on the shoreline is no guarantee of peace. Expect the unexpected in the deep south. Only here do flightless birds take flight once again. Only here do elephants dive into darkness. Only here do pristine white landscapes catch on fire, as if the beginning of time was once again beginning. No journey to the White Continent would be complete without a sunset transit through the Lemire Channel. Only 7 miles long and averaging less than 1¼ miles wide, this channel offers a breathtaking final image of Antarctica. A kaleidoscope of towering cliffs, liquid reflections, and icy vistas frozen in time. Such is the spirit of Antarctica. Largely pristine, still mostly unexplored, unraveling her secrets slowly. Both omnipotent and fragile, it is a world that touches souls and gives birth to dreams. It is Antarctica dreaming. A world once experienced, never to be forgotten.